In the mellowness of man, we see that we are required to, in a sense, confront our own inability. When you find yourself tackling the concept of boredom, or the concept that you are able but not capable because the terrain is unfit, you still are not able enough. You need to seek an ability that is found through intricate observance of how you as a being are being expressed in this moment. When you find a natural emanation of yourself, what that means is that you are seeing what you have to offer to every offering you have ever received. Man's mind is intricate in the sense that it creates itself. It creates itself in many ways. And once you absorb in really the creative potential of your mind, you see that your emotions can be received through multiple locations, instantaneously being experienced through a natural sense of how your mold of conditioning has sprouted from the dirt of what you thought was impossible. You see, natural metaphors are with us and they work with us. Once you pay attention to your breathing begins to communicate. It begins to show at first the different movement of your thoughts. Once your breathing is at a peaceful state, you begin experiencing the natural presence that you are. And so it begins with a comfort. You must have a comfortable seat in the sense that the body is calm, in the sense that the mind does not grab onto anything, but is willing to sit there and explore the emptiness of everything it has put value in. And so we find ourselves perhaps having an inclination to speak with a man in the Himalayas who, in a sense, belonged to our imagination, but was always there. You speak to someone who has confronted the idea of their death, and you see they know that they will never speak of death. You ask about death, you have brought the veil to its thickest point, because death is not the route. Death is the part of the route which becomes manifest when it is required. So you must see that your steps and the way you're stepping now suggest how you can, in any imaginative way which you can consider, have stepped before or after or will step. So we see that our certainty, as it elevates, as we are heating up our solid truths, we begin to see that the nature of that solidity begins to change. In other words, our truths are no longer being seen through the eyes of man. They can be seen through the eyes of the object. So the same ant can be present among the same idea. And so once we find an idea that is working towards its omniscience, you see that the idea breaks down and you have confronted the idea of you belonging to that idea. We are always being enlightened because we are always being torn and pushed into many relationships which, if we are mindful of, we create and we cultivate insight. Insight is an ability to cultivate in the sense that you are exploring the energetic ambition of that excitement. And what I mean by that is simply what you feel, which is the place you must go. So in other words, if I invite you to the Hall of Halls and to the grandest station where man goes before he becomes unstationed of his temporal effects, you see that in that hall you are invited, but if you forget the invitation, some part of you still knows you're invited. Even though you may fail, even though you may go through pain, even though you may collapse in identity, you will see that there's no such thing as insanity, but life pushing you back to where you can bring forth your greatest expression. Do not create a world that is not true to you. Because if you do, you will be away from that truth. You will see that others know more than you and you will feel hollow. And that hollowness is enlightening if you take it, if you touch it right, but many don't. And if you take the emptiness of your greatest failure to see the space where your future shall rebuild itself. Motivation is no longer needed. That word dissolves into you always being motivated. You always having the ability to see that we are getting stuck in communication. So what that means is that if I am sitting here and I know Mr. Within, and if someone comes here and tells me that you, my friend, are not this, you are a slave, you are trapped, the mind does not, it cannot provide truth, the system doesn't work. And the person tells me in a way where he is hopeless, so hopeless that out of the fear of hopelessness, what is there to communicate? And so if you have found your trust to always be in the physical, you have avoided the beauty of your non-physical presence. And what that means is that when I talk, are these words not present in your mind in the way your imagination embraces them? Is the fabric of reality not simple in its most intense complexity? Does the eye that perceive the intensity of the fires, of the flames of their sin, of that imagination, let's say we go there and we confront the darkest, so that the angel of death is not the angel of death, but it is the beautiful of the symmetry of all the wrong I have done, the laws of karma, all collectively meeting me. When you are confronted with the presence of the opposite of every idea you thought was right, you see that you have been ignoring life. You see that the times that you were a victim and the times that perhaps you were a criminal, these times were meaningful because they added to the design of how these experiences will mold the next steps you take. Do not underestimate the value of the communication that you are as a being. Imagination, the borders must break. We do not want to bring nations right now into the problem, because right now we must confront our internal borders. We have limited ourselves. I do not call you a brother and you have become an object which I have named an enemy. That is not the communication that creates a better world. So before we can communicate, before words are meaningful, we shall see the sincerity and the authenticity of the communicator who has seen life. Every great leader was touched by existence. And in a way they were touched was that existence came to them in the moment where they were lost. The greatest visionaries, when they were lost, when they were empty, where their thought of who they were told to be was disappeared. It all dissolved. When they saw so deeply that solid just jumped into gas. The liquidity of presence is simply the bridge. You must be comfortable with any word that comes your way and any combination of meaning that word can imply to you. We want to be very tolerant because guys, there's a huge virtue in patience. They said patience is a virtue because the patient man begins to see why he needs to wait. And you wait because you are building for something. Because the moment which is now is creating the greatness of the next moment. And so you become patient, you become tolerant. You do not try to disturb the difficulty and complexity of life. So when that unfortunate event comes where you are punched in the face and so your ego is crumbled, which I have gone through and which I thought my hell had come earlier, but I saw that it was a blessing. There's a beautiful Zen story which I will communicate right now. And you see, the Zen story is one that says that there was one day a man, random guy who loved practices of the Dharma and, Buddhism, and saw the Buddha as the light of his pursuit. He simply reached a level where he wasn't, in a sense, enlightened, because he was still working within, not abstract enough bounds, but at the same time, there was noise still in his mind to create the story. So this man sat there and he had a cognition and he had a revelation, and so suddenly his body felt light. His body felt free. He suddenly felt he is consciousness, but he's also this, right? And as this man felt this, suddenly, in this Zen story, of course, this is this is a Zen story, and so take it with mindfulness. So as this man receives revelation, he becomes enlightened. There is a dark sense of imagery in the corner. Let's say a dark minion as the story. I'm going to say the story. Actually, I'm not going to take away from the story. The story said there was a dark minion there that saw this man get enlightened. And this dark minion, not that we want to give darkness a bad experience and imagery to that, but we simply want to see that this dark minion, so in other words, another being who thought he was greater in regards to greed and taking and worshipping man's duality, that being goes to the Dark Lord. He goes to the originator of the great duality, and he goes there to the Dark Lord and says, Dark Lord, what can we do? This man has just gotten enlightened, and mind that this is a story. So we continue that in the mind of that man, he felt he had received revelation. And the minion looked at that man and was like, whoa, he's getting clearer to understanding the nature of his being. He runs to the Dark Lord and tells the Dark Lord, and the Dark Lord simply replies, don't worry. Because he will make a belief out of it. He will make a truth out of it. He will take a glimpse of the river. He will put his hand in the river, and he will look at his men and look at people and look at the objectified world and look at the limitations. And once the limitations ask, tell us something that only, we are comfortable in our limitation, we're comfortable in our comfort zone to hear. You will see that you will try to explain it to them. But in a sense, that truth, you do not need to communicate. And what that means is that there is no need to communicate your highest truth in lower ways. And what I mean is that there's a system of hierarchy kept so we can go to work tomorrow, right? We want to keep this practical. These deep thoughts are natural applications. They're natural things. And nature is never late. Nature understands that it is complete because its search for truth does not need to be based on a temporal illusion that could not observe its collectivity, of its unity, of its eternal mind. You see, the nature of the mind is so empty that eternity becomes simply a glance. So you need to see that it is all about how gentle and how sensitive you are in how you are approaching your next moment. You don't need books, you don't need self-help books, but you need everything that life is bringing you, including my voice, to guide you to your next steps. They said a lot of people talk about the staircase to heaven, and okay, let's assume that there's a staircase to heaven. I make that walk up that staircase so heaven. So in other words, I take that first step into my greatest act of kindness, and then I dive deep and I see at the core of me being so compassionate as a human being to renounce everything. There is a voice that says, my child, you deserve to grow. You deserve all that you have renounced. The moment you let go of the desire and you see its emptiness, you will have a knowing of guidance that will take you out. You do not need shocking stories or rash action. What that means is I find many great visionaries among us. And so I am communicating as a pilot always. Your most immediate requirement is to see your chair. If you are in some kind of ride which we are calling life, you are on a plane, okay? So listen to the voice of me self-reflectively. See that if I sound bad to you, it is happening within you. If I sound good to you, it is happening within you. And so who is the creator of these ideas? And it is me. And who is me? Well, when shapes dissolve, just like the ripples on a pond, you shall see the greater reflection of who you really are. And bring poetry to explain that which the linear tells you you will never be able to explain. For I see that everything that I have struggled with, oh my God, if I could go back in time, which I don't need to, but if I could, I would go back and see, and I would tell myself, body, you do not see these painful struggles. Your suffering, your deaths are showing you the totality of the value of your life. And so, all symbols are the whispers of the prophet of the heart. Because the prophet of the heart is one that says, I will communicate my message without words. I will emanate it. I will be it. I will act it. And you will see, once you allow yourself, you allow the soil of earth to hold you. You allow all those things that you thought wrong and all those things that you thought right to be present in the same space and time of your origination of awareness. Your hunger will change into you constantly being absorbed, constantly being fed, and so your bliss bodies activate in ways where they were always there. And so you see that the person who could laugh, and God bless the laughter that broke through the seriousness of our problems. God bless the child who did not know the darkness of the world and just said, you know, the child that made the noise that was meaningless. That is art. Do not think you will be criticized. You need to show yourself to your world. And that means you need to authentically find yourself to then beautifully communicate. You will see that as you feel your higher senses of bodies, tears of joy have come because you have released your incapability into ability. And so that ability is omniscient. And so, my friends, the pilot has said his last message. And absorb into the silence of your being, which will be the silence of your knowing. We judge ourselves so much that we lose track of the seriousness of the life's work that we are here to do. You know, you will see that when you are struck and when you are thrown, and when you are drunk on substance, when you are drunk on materialness, and when you see that that has not led, and that taking that road, that going down that Alice's road was perhaps leading to somewhere darker, you see that once you're laid drunk, extremely drunk, I mean, in that shower, empty shower at the end of the night, where all that you have been saying to life is curses, it has been lack of gratefulness, where you have shouted with an existential madness of feeling you deserve to be where you envision but you are not. You deserve to be in the heaven that you envision, and you feel you're distant from it, but that distance is there because it's meant to. Because you see that once I have been stabbed by my fellow man and I have fallen into the cruelty which I have seen to be a potential of man's action. The darkest, those people who hurt beings, you are great beings in the sense that you are creating a symbol of that reality. And ask yourself, in a world where man's loving kindness and communication can lead him to become the stars with his touch of inspiration, do you want to create a harsh world? Do you want to tell that child that he needs to die? And you will see the reason you don't want to is because you don't want to touch existence. Because you want to know that regardless of the preacher that thought his idea was true, that the silence is the truth, that absorbs the thinkers, that absorbs those who write in their notebooks the cosmos, and at the end of it put a smiley face. It is okay to enjoy your simplicity. It is okay to appreciate the style of your design regardless if you think others are calling it a name. We are too convinced by the voices that are not our own. And so we need to give ourselves a period of silence, a period where we only hear the voice of our breath. And guys, it speaks. I sometimes stop when I cannot find the wisdom that I require, when I find myself being thrown into a cycle of lack of mindfulness. I stop. I notice that my reality cannot be beautiful if I do not acknowledge the sufferings, if I do not see the pain. Do not ignore pain. In other words, on some level, your subconscious mind, when we perceive movies, is innately able enough now to create, based on how much evolved our practice is, to perceive and, in a sense, create its sense of transcendence. So you see, guys, it's not that they need to rate movies. At some point, when you have enough ideas, your natural energy begins to combine these in unique ways where you begin to see that is your voice. So your voice is your natural design presented in your authenticity. So if I noticed how, there was a time in my life where you would look at me and you would probably say, wow, this guy is so shy. This guy is so introverted, so alone and silent that it's as if he's not there, And you will see that person who dissolved in his destruction of value of what that experience meant. In other words, we go through an experience and we are totally able to absorb that experience, and so we're simply working with the judgment after. So after Judgment Day, imagine suddenly, whoop, you're born again. And so when you're born again, you've had a Judgment Day. And so that is simply memory. Memory is your Judgment Day. Every moment in which a new idea is being revealed to you, simply to how you're hearing my voice, existence is combining within your moment to show that this is the day after Judgment Day. And so the next Judgment Day is again the next revelation, And so you see that you need to work with your ways. You need to sit comfortably on the ground. So guys, it's all luxury, and so self-help and anything that you seek outside of yourself is a luxury for a consciousness that knows itself. And what that means is that on some level, you as a being have acknowledged the fact that you exist. Now, you have an experience of this existence which we are calling now. Now, this experience of this existence which I am begins having shape because I am directly the first, because the information is present, because the shapes are there. So I don't know who I am, and regardless, I think I'm a shape, but I don't know what shape that is, and I'm thrown in a world where suddenly it's just complex geometry, where there's a shape. So I see, if I am not, for example, the limitations of, for example, the triangle, am I the square? Well, I see, no, I'm not the triangle, so wait, am I the square? And I see constantly in my experiencing of these different shades. So in other words, your spotlight of attention and awareness going through your life experiences. So imagine that. These are simply an observance that cannot be shaped, which is the nature of the mind, which is emptiness in Buddhism, or in many traditions known as the stillness of being, or the nectar of existence, this beautiful aspect of love, which is silent and present. You see, that is a shape that is unshaped because the shape is there. So simply we see that, wow, because there's a shape, there is a possibility of a cosmos. And so, because we're aware of this shape, we see that we're constantly being this nothingness that is instantaneously passing through this ability to see different ideas. So what that means is that a minute ago I was talking about something else. That was the world you perceived. Now I'm talking about this. That is the world you're seeing. Because on some subtle level, there's an innate knowing that does not need a shape, but it communicates as shape, which is the longing and the search of you seeking your truth, what's within your truth, The concepts, the word beyond is a beautiful one. Do you know what I mean? Because it makes you see beyond what you are seeing. And we must be tolerant enough to have the naturalness and the harmonious presence of life, which is as harmonious as your heartbeat, to remind you that it doesn't matter what projection of imagination or what hologram you're in, you are the origination of the hologram. So you do not need to worry about your own construction. So imagine you who have perceived the beauty in a creator. The creator is not worried about its creation because it's created it that way. And so you see, similarly in life, we are a creative experience, which I have very poetically called an attention, a divine attention. We are consciousness as awareness, as attention to memory, right? And so as you look at the complexity of your memory, you dissolve into the simplicity of the emptiness, which is who you are. So guys, if you say, I am this shape, you are limiting yourself of the beauty of how that shape is part of other shapes. So you don't need to touch life in the sense that you don't need to take it seriously. So perhaps when you see the Zen master in his kindness and in his ability to be a magnificent teacher suggest, or the yogi and the mystic to suggest existentially, be quiet and still and just be present, that teaching is different than the person telling you, all right buddy, now you need to do this, after this I need to get this thing, and okay, make sure you give this to me on Tuesday, and make sure you do this, and thanks, you know. That is an intensity of life. You're choosing the intensity of your life, which is suggesting the quality of your experience. And so, slow it down, and bring everything which you think is an errand or something you have to do for your survival into a stillness of being. Let it become as calm and as natural as this wave of peace, which is our breath. Guys, I am communicating because I find communication to be the greatest outlet for instruction or teaching, or in a sense, reception. You see, you may call it teacher-student, you may call it master, you know, or servant. You may call these relationships and have emotional values on them. But in a sense, it's actually about, you know, because we're conceiving a cause and, a caused and affected universe, you know, it's simply a point of reception and where the communication is coming from. So your search in life in regards to enlightenment very quickly blends down. All the mountains you have climbed, which are all the experiences you as a being have had, including all the potentials of the imagination you could see. So in other words, I'm saying, assume you're all who you are, including every imagination you had being real. That's the type of being I'm acknowledging. I'm acknowledging you as one which you are responsible for every creation that you had as a creator. Because that is the reality you're conceiving. You have not taken it to an instantaneous moment. So now I'm telling you, take this and realize that all of life experiences come down to us confronting our two eyes to see that the gaze of the two is entering and being found in one space. So the difference, the yin and yang are in the same circle in a sense. You perceive that harmony is omniscient, so disharmony is a choice. And god dang, and in a sense, you are always innocent when you see you were never there, when you see you're not the illusion. If I tell you, is that coat part of your skin, you'll be like, no, because I know my body. You see that sense of knowingness? Now, when you go through life, you cultivate more of that. And you see that when they say you need experience, buddy, they're not saying you need experience. They're saying, buddy, you need involvement with a reality in which you have no idea of. And so better look at where your ideas are leading you, because your ambition comes down to what you can communicate in a way where men can recognize that they are more than men. You are not alone when you see that your loneliness is simply leading you to a natural expression of greater ability. You know, it's simply like when you heat up that liquid, it begins to dream of the visions of gas. Do you know what I mean? You begins to see how beautiful the steam is. And so we see the drops of water shaking, freezing. When the moment of enlightenment or the moment of our greatest confronting comes, we see just like those drops, perhaps, in that kettle or whatever, in where they are. We see these drops begin to shake. They begin to shake. Everything which you have kept for yourself as a solid reality begins to shake, because the temperature, because the moment that you are present in life begins to change. And so the voice of one man becomes a gift in which you can see that one presence can become omnipresent, can become present through all things. You can see that your individuality is innately giving you the knowing of your collectivity. And so in a sense, why is there a fear when the fear is compassionately absorbed in the sense of your embrace of everything into life? And what that means is, guys, you do not act fluffy. Do not think that once you have reached a sense of bliss, you don't confront physical reality like physical reality. You honor physical reality for its beauty. You say that when I am by that stone, I am as solid as a mountain. But when I am looking at the sky, do not ask me of my limitations, because there are none. And allow your excitement to just make you burst into authentic communication. And as you cultivate through your simplicity. So what that means is, life is difficult, life is hard. If someone comes here and they are hurt, I am not going to say you're not hurt. Just believe in yourself. I'm going to say, yes, you are hurt. Look at the design. Look at the design of your scar. Look at how you were wounded, so you know that perhaps the sword in the battlefield that stabbed you, you can create armor. And so we see in this life, it is important to have a healthy ego, because we cannot go egoless, because we don't need to. We have a renaissance of ideas. We have a renaissance of imagination. I am seeing children looking through the same eyes and recognizing that is the eyes that we should have always looked through. I am a student of life. And life is never late. It never needs to have a problem that needs to be there, because you are your conception of here. And so allow yourself to calmly, and I feel I've really emphasized this in this talk, that it is very important for us as human beings to communicate. And before I acknowledge myself as anything else, I acknowledge my humanity in utmost clarity. I feel the solidity of the table where my meal is placed upon. But I look at my hunger and I also follow it. And I mean that I see that before I truly can be free, there are some things I have not given myself permission to do. And it is internally. So internally, you have done something wrong and you're like, I have not given myself permission to forgive myself. For how could I give myself permission to forgive myself when I am so intricately and seriously looking at how the problem is designed or how I have sinned? The shape of sin will always make you uncomfortable, because it is like someone sitting in front of you in your living room and having a horrible odor. And you're like, okay, buddy, time to take a shower. Either you bask in your inability to look at the brightness of life, or you see that pain is pushing you to stand up. Evolution is designed to tell you to get up. And so once an idea of you fails, it too, with the loving perhaps push of every great man who has spoken, which is every being so far, that your next act is introducing you to your totality. Much blessings, my friends. You will begin giving yourself beautiful existential roles, not in the sense that they are shaped, but in the sense that you will care for things. So what that means is that if I'm there and I see someone be cruel to an animal, I will shout, I will roar like the lion telling you not to touch its cub. If I see a human being being harsh to another human being who's experiencing life, I will, in a sense, stand in front of that human being with my silence. If you're about to destroy innocence, I will stand in front of that innocence so that you destroy the eternity that is found in my eyes, and you will see you can't. Because that which is the origin, that which is sparking our presence and our experience here is so playful that it is beyond the limitations of imagination. So appreciate the gift of existence that is the design of how you are as a being. And so there is no one who can stop the river flowing. But if you think you are a drop, you will always feel you do not have direction in your life, purpose, or anything. The reason you find great purpose, great vision, is to see that, wow, I don't have purpose. And it's good to see that you don't have purpose at first. Because that sense of self of you does not have purpose. Because that sense of self of you is based on a reality that is built on limitation. If I come and tell you, yo man, don't trust goodness, trust badness. Why? When you have a choice to be good and bad, you have an ability to choose to eat spaghetti or, or to eat rice. It's your choice. Hopefully you're not eating a hamburger, Because there's no need to. And you see, simplicity needs to acknowledge complexity. If you try to be simple, and you see that the mystic who was the lover of the unknown and the beauty of life, and that mystic saw. That mystic saw that when you seek something as a limited form, you will always be stuck in a sense of creating your own limitation and division in a world built on unified principles of existence. I don't use the word existence lightly, and when I use it, know that it is hollow. Know that when I say existence, I am simply saying, once you have seen your reflection in the mirror and have had your hand touch your face, you will know that you were never the mirror. It is, you see that your cognitions and your thoughts and the way that they're flowing in your mind and how you are receiving sound to even have a sense of ability to confront things as an idea, you see that there is an advanced claymaker which we find to be the reality of life transforming through a certain sense of golden ratio, in that we see that it is cyclical. And so if we are acknowledging a separate reality, we must completely acknowledge the separate reality, with an allowance for us to perceive it in unified ways. And you see, sometimes your life does not need to be too sensitive. You don't need to be too fluffy. What that means is you might think that compassion means never saying something harsh or in a state of anger. But anger is nothing. It's empty, but you need to confront all your angry senses of self. And when I say confront it, it all dissolves into the moment which you are aware. Awareness is that which is really appreciating the game. So it's not even about, I am not even here thinking of the afterlife too much. I am simply here being like, wow, people are not seeing what's here. Look at the beauty of our simple things connecting to the complex and seeing how as above is as below, or so below, as above, so below. Great men speak in ways where they do not try to limit your vision. So when you are talking to a friend, you don't talk to him as someone who you're not showing who you really are. You see? If for example, you have a habit which is which you will hide instantly if you feel authority figures are around, you will see that there's nothing wrong with that habit, but in how that habit is being engaged by a sense of other outside of you. So internally, you don't need to choose what externally you're being communicated. So what that means is that at the end of my last sentence, you will see that it is you who are sentencing how you see things. There's a beauty, guys. Check words, and after you construct angry senses of self, you see that you are okay for that anger to come back. It is only when I am okay, to lose the treasure that I will truly feel treasured. I feel I have treasure. And what that means is that I see this breath, this breathing, this natural sense of livelihood always communicating to me that regardless of how much you think you are a separate idea, you will always be emerging in your totality. Because that is the nature of the cosmos. Because, guys, you guys are forgetting. You're thinking only mankind's constructs are creating that. So what that means is that if you come in a room and see that there's one person there, right? And you see that guy's a writer, you're like, oh, nice, there's a writer in this world, Perhaps you're not seeing all the other rooms where there are kids writing their greatest ideas in which they will soon voice because the moment will communicate itself. You see that ignorance fades when you're excited to see the whole spectrum. Because that is the playfulness of seeing how all these beautiful rides in life are connected. So what that means is that I may go have an experience as a man lost. I may go have an experience as a man found. I may go have an experience as a man who's a bridge. I may go have an experience as a man who is the conceiver of all conception. But again, there is so much in our individuality that we will design. We need to explore. That you see that the seer sat comfortably because he saw the potential man had, and he knew that even though who I am, the Amin, the person, the name, the identity that I am, even though it will fade, even though Mr.Within's temporal bodies will fade in perhaps 100 years or whenever the time comes, I will smile because I will know that there is nothing wrong. We know where we're going. We know where we're going. You simply need to see that you just need to adjust the human experience. And you need to see that you need to acknowledge all those writers that you're not seeing who are in those other rooms. And to see that just as human beings have an inspiration to communicate with others, to see, in interstellar ways, there are beings who have that similar inspiration. But beings who are not limited, because you see that the planet that we are alive in is multidimensional in a sense that there are many timelines of experience. So you see that as you allow yourself to feel your lighter bodies, or in a sense your subtler ability to accept an imagination which suggests an experience which you enter immediately as a journey which is relevant now, you see that through a twist, simplicity is your greatest complexity. All your moments of wrong have shown you the rightness of your next act. And so they asked this great Persian seer and poet and literate, they asked him, where have you learned to be polite from? And he said, I have learned to be polite from all those who have been rude to me. And I could totally understand, because I've had people be rude to me. And when I say rude to me, they have been rude to other people. When I am present and some human being treats another human being wrong, my presence will not even allow that. If I am seeing that, I'm immediately taking care of it in the sense that I'm efficiently bringing harmony, because I exude harmony through all that I am acknowledging is disharmonious. Do not make these separate from you. Do not try to be only happy. Do not try to be only sad. try to see that there are beauty in both of these, but because it's cyclical, it's as if it is the dancing of both your hands. You know, it is the dancing of both your feet. It is as if you're maintaining yourself in this life by confronting all aspects in which you can be thrown into realities which you can define solidly as tough. Go into your difficulty with simplicity. What that means is that if I am suddenly thrown and suddenly out of where I am speaking right now in this couch, I am taken to the UN stand, and they're like, you have only a breath before you give your speech to the UN. And I am there, and they're saying the audience is not the UN, it is mankind. I will not know what to say. And that will be my speech. Because I will go there and I will say that I have nothing to say. I have nothing to say. I will say, I will communicate that when the human form as an idea observes its being, it becomes sensitive to how delicately life is moving. You might be stressed out by your, life, by your job. You may be in the toughest of humans' experiences, but you see suddenly that in that dirtiest ditch, there is an ant walking as peacefully as any Buddha, as any prophetic figure that has communicated the harmonious flows of godly moments. You see that life has many sensitivities and many ways of looking at itself because it can blend many memories. In other words, if we bring 3 speakers in the room and these 3 don't have a conversation based on talking to one another, trying to change one another, but do not try to change, but simply talk about what is there, change is naturally being done by Gaia's hand. Mother Earth knows what it's doing. And we see George Carlin's frustration dissolves into the smile that we are all good. We are all fine and nature knows where it's going. Much blessings, guys, because when I speak, I want to really, truly give you the greatest ideas that a human being can give in his own silence, stillness, solitude, and sense of seeing a beauty that can be nothing but eternal. In the sense that eternity, once it's unshaped, it is as omniscient as that which is temporal. Temporal is omniscient too. Because when I walk on stepping stones, I see that every stone belonged to my feet. They were each a sense of self. And so, who you are now is a stepping stone for who you will be tomorrow. But don't keep it so far. Bring these stepping stones and make it closer. Build your bridge and understand that your creativity is your gate to your own greater understanding. Because your creativity means that you are exciting the human construct or the human idea that finds itself mechanical to a point where its non-linear expressions are as creative as a leaf on a tree. And go look at a leaf on a tree. That complexity shows that your trust in existence will bring an apparency of the infinite potential of natural design. Much blessings. And you are the gate to everything. Namaste.